To everyone who knew him, Arinze was the perfect gentleman. He was tall, rich, and incredibly handsome, with a smile that could make anyone's heart flutter. People in the village admired him for his kindness and generosity, and women swooned over him whenever he passed by. He lived in a grand mansion at the edge of town, filled with expensive furniture and priceless decorations. He was polite, charming, and always dressed in the finest clothes. But no one knew the dark secret that he carried within him. Arinze had been married many times, and each marriage seemed perfect at first. However, something terrible always happened. After each wedding, his wife would mysteriously disappear by the next morning. People asked questions, but Arinze always had an answer. He told everyone that his wives had fallen ill or had left town, but no one could ever find them or their bodies. It wasn't long before the rumors started spreading. He must be cursed, some people whispered. Why else would his wives vanish? Despite these rumors, Arinze never had trouble finding a new bride. His charm was irresistible, and many young women, especially those without families, hoped to marry him, dreaming of the luxurious life he could provide. They didn't know that the night they said their vows would also be their last night alive. You see, Arinze was hiding something terrifying, something so evil and twisted that it would make anyone's skin crawl. Every night, as soon as the sun set, his manhood would transform into a venomous snake. Not just any snake, but one so deadly that a single bite could kill in seconds. This curse wasn't something he could control. It was placed on him by a powerful and ancient cult, which he had joined years ago in exchange for wealth and immortality. In return for his riches, he had to offer them souls of the women he married. At night, when he was alone with his bride, the snake would appear. It would hiss and slither, striking before the poor woman even had a chance to scream. By the morning, his wife's body would disappear, swallowed by the curse, leaving no trace behind. Arinze would then go back to living his life, pretending to be heartbroken and waiting until the next victim came along. He had done this many times, and each time he felt stronger and more powerful. The souls of the women gave him life, and as long as he kept offering sacrifices, he remained invincible. The village was none the wiser, and no one could stop him. The women he chose often had no families, no one who would come looking for them if they disappeared. To everyone else, Arinze was a grieving widower, cursed by bad luck, but to him, each death was just another step toward more power. As the months went by, Arinze grew bolder. The thrill of watching his victims die fed his hunger for more. He began to take pride in his ability to deceive everyone around him. Every time he attended a wedding, his smile was brighter, and his charm was stronger. No one suspected that behind his handsome face lurked a monster, a man who lived for the fear and pain of others. But deep down there was something else that haunted him. Each night after the transformation, after the snake had done its terrible deed, Arinze would look at himself in the mirror and feel a strange emptiness. The power he gained from the sacrifices was intoxicating, but something was missing. The curse had given him everything: money, immortality, and strength, but it had taken something away too: his soul. His heart had become cold and dark, and though he smiled on the outside, inside, he was nothing but a hollow shell. Sometimes, late at night, he would hear the whispers of the souls he had taken. They called out to him, their voices filled with anger and sadness. They wanted revenge, but Arinze was too powerful for them to harm. He had long ago stopped caring about their suffering. All he cared about was keeping his secret safe and continuing his hunt for new brides. One evening, as he strolled through the marketplace, Arinze noticed a woman he had never seen before. She was different from the others, strong, confident, and beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Her name was Zuri. She had no family, no one to miss her, and she was new in town, making her the perfect target. As he watched her from a distance, a plan formed in his mind. He would charm her, marry her, and by the next night, she would be gone just like the others. But what Arinze didn't know was that Zuri wasn't like the other women he had married. She carried her own secret, one that would change everything. While Arinze was preparing to make her his next victim, Zuri was silently watching him, knowing exactly who and what he was. For years, she had been hunting the man with the cursed snake, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that moment had finally arrived. As Arinze approached Zuri, flashing his winning smile and offering sweet compliments, he believed that he was about to claim another soul. But little did he know this time, the hunter had become the hunted. Zuri was not the kind of woman who could be easily fooled. She had grown up learning to be strong and independent, and she had faced many challenges in her life. Behind her calm and beautiful smile was a mind that was always calculating, always ready for what came next. Her piercing brown eyes didn't miss a thing, and the moment she stepped into Arinze's village, she could sense something dark lurking in the shadows. Zuri had come to this village for one reason only: revenge. She had spent years following stories about a man whose wives disappeared mysteriously after their wedding nights. The tales reached her in different towns and villages, but the man's name was always the same: Arinze. To most people, the stories sounded like tragic accidents, but Zuri knew better. She knew that the disappearances were not accidents, and she knew who was responsible. This wasn't just about justice for those poor women. For Zuri it was personal. Her own sister, the only family she had left, had been one of Arinze's victims. She had vanished just like the others, never to be seen again. Ever since that day, Zuri had made it her mission to find him, to uncover the truth, and to make him pay for what he had done. As Zuri wandered through the marketplace, pretending to browse the stalls, she noticed Arinze watching her. She had heard many stories about his charm and good looks, and now, seeing him in person, she could understand why so many women had fallen for him. He was tall, well-dressed, and his smile was warm and inviting. But Zuri didn't see what others saw. Behind that smile, she saw the monster that he truly was, the man who had caused so much pain. She could feel his eyes on her, studying her, thinking she was just another helpless woman he could charm and use. But Zuri was not helpless, and she was not afraid. She had spent years preparing for this moment, and she was ready. She carried ancient charms in her pockets, powerful protection spells passed down through generations of her family. She had trained in the ways of magic and combat, learning how to fight against creatures far more dangerous than Arinze's cursed snake. When Arinze finally approached her, his voice was smooth and sweet. "Good afternoon, beautiful lady," he said, flashing that same smile that had won over so many before her. "Are you new to our village? I haven't seen you around before." Zuri turned to face him, her expression calm and polite. She had to play the part of an innocent woman, just like the others. If she showed even the slightest sign that she knew his secret, the whole plan could fall apart. "Yes, I'm new here," she replied, smiling softly. "I just arrived a few days ago. It's a lovely village." Arinze's eyes lit up, as if he had just found a hidden treasure. "Well, let me be the first to welcome you," he said, bowing slightly. "My name is Arinze. Perhaps I could show you around sometime." Zuri smiled again, pretending to be flattered. "That would be lovely, thank you," she said. Inside, her heart was racing, not with fear, but with anticipation. She was getting closer to him, and soon she would have her chance to bring him down. Over the next few days, Arinze began to court Zuri, just as he had with all the others. He brought her gifts, flowers, jewelry, and fine clothes, and took her to the most beautiful places in the village. Everywhere they went, people admired them as a couple. They looked perfect together, and no one suspected a thing. Zuri played her role well, acting as though she were falling for him. One evening, after a romantic dinner, Arinze took Zuri's hand and looked deep into her eyes. "Zuri, my dear," he said softly, "I have fallen deeply in love with you. You are unlike any woman I've ever met. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Zuri's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. She forced herself to smile, keeping her true emotions hidden. "Yes," she whispered, nodding. "I would love to marry you." Arinze grinned, his eyes gleaming with excitement. He had no idea that Zuri was leading him into a trap. He believed that he had found his next victim, another woman to sacrifice for his twisted power. But Zuri had her own plans. She would let him believe that he was in control, that she was just another helpless bride. And on their wedding night, when the snake emerged, she would be ready. The wedding day approached quickly, and the whole village was buzzing with excitement. Everyone was eager to see Arinze finally find happiness after so much tragedy. But Zuri knew that happiness was the last thing waiting for him. She spent the days leading up to the wedding preparing her charms, sharpening her skills, and strengthening her resolve. When the day of the wedding finally arrived, Zuri stood before the mirror in her white dress, her heart pounding. She looked calm on the outside, but inside she was ready for battle. She knew what was coming that night, and she wasn't going to run. This time, Arinze would face a bride who could fight back. The day of the wedding was filled with music, laughter, and celebration. The whole village gathered to watch Arinze and Zuri exchange their vows. They cheered as the couple walked hand in hand through the streets, and many whispered to each other that perhaps this time, Arinze had finally found true happiness. As the evening faded and the sky darkened, Arinze led Zuri to his mansion. It stood tall and ominous at the edge of the village, a place that held many secrets, secrets only Zuri could sense. The front doors creaked as they entered, and Zuri could feel the weight of the many souls that had been trapped here before her. The air was thick with the whispers of the women who had died within these walls, but tonight, Zuri would not join them. "Welcome to your new home," Arinze said softly as they stepped inside, his hand resting on her shoulder. "We'll be alone now. Just you and me." Zuri smiled faintly, playing along with the act. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice calm even though she knew what awaited her. Arinze guided her up the grand staircase to their bedroom, a room filled with luxurious fabrics and grand furniture. But beneath the surface, Zuri could feel the darkness creeping in, the evil energy that pulsed within these walls. The bed was large and inviting, but to Zuri, it felt like a trap. She knew the moment she stepped into that room, the game would begin. The door closed behind them with a heavy thud, sealing them in. Arinze moved toward her, his eyes now darker, more intense. "Tonight is a special night," he said in a low voice. "You'll see." Zuri didn't move. She watched him closely, waiting for him to make his move. Her heart raced, but not with fear, with anticipation. She had waited for this moment for years, and now it was finally here. She was ready. Arinze reached for the buttons on his shirt, slowly unbuttoning them, his eyes never leaving hers. "You must be tired after such a long day," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "Why don't you rest? I'll join you soon." Zuri didn't reply. She simply watched as Arinze's hands moved, pulling off his shirt and revealing his bare chest. But something was different now. The air in the room seemed to shift, growing colder. Zuri could see a strange, shimmering light beneath his skin, something unnatural. His smile grew wider, more menacing as his transformation began. His voice deepened, and his eyes glowed with an eerie light. "I've been waiting for this moment," he hissed, his body beginning to tremble. Zuri stepped back, her hand gripping the charms in her pocket. She could see it happening now. The curse was taking over him. Arinze's manhood twisted and morphed, growing longer and thicker, turning into the venomous snake Zuri had been preparing to face. The snake coiled around him, hissing loudly, its fangs dripping with deadly poison. Arinze's skin became darker, more scaly, as the creature took control. His once handsome face twisted into something monstrous, something evil. Zuri's pulse quickened, but she didn't flinch. She had expected this. She was prepared. Arinze's voice was no longer smooth and charming. It was now low and sinister, filled with hunger. "Do you know what happens next?" he asked, his eyes gleaming. "You'll be like all the others. And by morning you'll be gone." Zuri held her ground, her face set with determination. "I'm not like the others," she said softly, her voice steady. Arinze sneered, the snake on his body hissing violently. "We'll see about that." In one swift motion, the snake lunged toward Zuri, its fangs ready to strike. But Zuri was faster. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small charm, a glistening stone that pulsed with ancient magic. She raised it in front of her, muttering an incantation under her breath. The snake stopped in mid-air, recoiling as if it had hit an invisible wall. Arinze growled in frustration. "What is this?" Zuri's eyes met his, and for the first time she saw fear in them. "It's the end for you," she said, her voice cold and unwavering. Arinze's body trembled as the snake around him thrashed wildly, trying to attack, but it couldn't get any closer to Zuri. The charms she carried were too strong, too powerful. Zuri began to chant louder, her words filling the room with an ancient power that made the walls shake. Arinze screamed in rage, but Zuri didn't stop. She pressed forward, forcing him back, her magic weakening the curse that had kept him powerful for so long. For the first time in his life, Arinze felt powerless. The snake hissed and writhed, but it could do nothing to stop her. As the night deepened, Zuri realized that this was only the beginning of their deadly game. Arinze was wounded, but not yet defeated. He still had tricks up his sleeve, and the battle was far from over. The air crackled with tension as Zuri faced Arinze, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and adrenaline. She had prepared for this moment, but now that it was here, she felt the weight of the ancient magic in her hands. The snake hissed and twisted, but Zuri held her ground, determined to confront the monster that had caused so much pain. "Do you really think you can defeat me?" Arinze snarled, his voice a low growl. The snake coiled around him, its scales glistening in the dim light of the room, looking as terrifying as its master. "You are just a foolish girl. You have no idea what you're up against." Zuri tightened her grip on the charm, feeling its warmth radiate through her fingers. "I know exactly what I'm up against," she replied confidently. "You're just a coward hiding behind a curse. I've spent years preparing for this moment." Arinze's eyes darkened, and for a moment, Zuri thought she saw a flicker of doubt in his gaze. But then his laughter filled the room, cruel and mocking. "You think you can break the curse? You have no idea how strong I am. Each woman I've sacrificed has made me invincible. I am eternal." Zuri took a step forward, refusing to back down. "But every soul you've taken is a chain around your neck, pulling you down. You're not invincible. You're trapped in your own darkness, and tonight, I will free those souls, starting with you." The snake lunged forward again, fangs bared, but Zuri raised her charm, calling on its magic. A bright light erupted from the stone, forming a barrier between her and the snake. It recoiled, hissing angrily, but Zuri felt the energy surge through her, feeding her determination. "You've taken so many innocent lives," she shouted, her voice ringing with power. "But tonight you will pay for your sins." The room shook with the force of her words, and Arinze's expression shifted from confidence to panic. "You can't do this. You're just a girl," he spat, desperation creeping into his voice. "I'm not just a girl," Zuri said fiercely. "I'm the sister of one of your victims. I've come to end your reign of terror once and for all." Arinze's face paled at her revelation, and for the first time, Zuri saw fear reflected in his eyes. She pressed on, channeling her energy into the charm. "I am here to set their souls free. I will break the curse that binds you." With a surge of determination, Zuri began to chant a powerful incantation passed down through her family for generations. The room filled with a bright light, and the walls trembled as if the house itself were alive, responding to the magic she unleashed. The snake writhed in agony, the curse that had granted Arinze power beginning to unravel. "No!" Arinze screamed, his voice cracking as he struggled against the force of Zuri's magic. "You can't take this from me." But Zuri didn't relent. "You're wrong. It's time for you to feel the pain you've caused." As she spoke the final words of her spell, the light exploded, illuminating the entire room in a brilliant flash. Arinze was thrown back, crashing against the wall, the snake rearing up and hissing furiously. The air was thick with energy, and Zuri felt the spirits of the women he had sacrificed stirring around her, their voices rising in a chorus of fury and hope. In that moment, Zuri saw glimpses of the women's lives, their joy, their dreams, all cut short by Arinze's evil. Their pain fueled her determination, and she focused on the light, calling for their strength to guide her. Arinze groaned in agony as the energy surged through him, the darkness within him fighting to maintain its hold. "You think you can destroy me," he gasped, struggling to get back to his feet. "I won't let you." But Zuri knew this was her chance. She took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of her strength and the spirit's energy. "You may have taken their lives, but you will not take mine." She directed the magic at Arinze, the light growing brighter and more intense. Suddenly, the snake lunged at her again, but this time Zuri was ready. With a swift motion, she threw the charm toward the creature, and it exploded into a shower of sparkles, blinding the snake and causing it to recoil in fear. The light filled the room, pushing the darkness back, and Zuri felt a surge of hope. "Now it's time to end this," she declared, her voice strong and unwavering. The snake began to shrink, its scales fading as the curse lost its grip on Arinze. The room shook with the power of Zuri's magic, and for the first time she felt in control. "No!" Arinze roared, desperation in his voice. "I refuse to be defeated by you." Zuri's heart raced as she watched the man she had been hunting for so long begin to falter. The snake shrank smaller and smaller, losing its venomous power, until finally, with a loud hiss, it disappeared into a puff of smoke. But Arinze was not finished. He fell to his knees, panting, the darkness slowly fading from his eyes. "You think you've won. I will come back," he spat, his voice filled with rage and despair. Zuri stepped closer, the light from her charm illuminating the room. "You won't come back. You'll face the consequences of your actions, and the spirits of those you've harmed will find peace." Swift movement, Zuri raised the charm high above her head. "By the power of those who were lost, I command you to be released," she shouted, her voice ringing with authority. The light erupted from the charm, engulfing the room in a blinding glow that felt alive. Zuri dropped to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. She could feel the spirits around her, swirling gently, their energy finally free. They were no longer bound to Arinze's darkness. They had found peace. Tears streamed down her face, a mix of relief and sadness. She had avenged them, but the weight of their loss remained heavy in her heart. The air settled, and Zuri stood up, looking around the now quiet room. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a sense of calm. She had faced the monster and emerged victorious, but she knew there was still work to be done. The darkness Arinze had spread would take time to heal, and she felt a deep sense of responsibility for the women he had harmed. As she stepped outside into the cool night air, the moon hung high above, casting its silvery light on the world below. Zuri looked up, feeling the presence of the spirits with her. They were free, and she had given them the peace they deserved. In that moment she made a silent vow. She would continue to fight against the darkness in the world. She would become a guardian for those who had suffered, using the knowledge and strength she had gained through this battle.